Hi, let's do a brief overview of how this computer code actually works. First, the computer code's broken up into a couple of different distinct pieces. These first two lines of code at the top are declaring variables, or a name that represents a piece of information. The next three groupings start with a word and extend from a beginning curly brace to a corresponding ending curly brace. These are referred to as functions. Basically, it's a name for a group of commands. In this case, these commands are referred to as the setup. The second set of commands is referred to as switch changed, and the third set of commands is referred to as the loop. When our photon first turns on, it will run the setup commands and set itself up. This set of commands will run exactly once when it gets power. If it turns off and back on, these commands will run again. So these commands are in charge of configuring how this is connected to the outside world. The first command, pin mode, indicates that the switch pin, which is D1, where we connected our switch up to, will be used as an input. Information will be coming in here. It's possible to also use this as an output, but in our case, we're only using it to read in information from the outside world. If someone were using a photon for something else, like maybe controlling a greenhouse, they might use it as an output instead. The second command says attach interrupt. An interrupt is interrupting this little processor on the photon, and it's being attached to the switch pin, and it's looking for any time it changes, anytime the gate opens or the gate closes. And in response to any change, it'll run the set of commands named switch changed. So that brings us to our second set of commands. The only time these will run is when the switch changes, when it goes from being open to being closed or being closed to being open. It'll run the set of commands once really quickly. This set of commands changes a variable. It says this thing called update gate should be true. This takes us to our last set of commands, the loop. The loop is what's called a loop in computer science. It's a set of commands that will run over and over and over. So our computer will step through running each of the relevant lines of code until they're done, and then it'll go through and do each of them again, and again, and again, and so on. These commands are first going to do an if statement. They're going to check that update gate variable and check to see, is it equal to true? If it's true, that means our gate is just changed. It's gone from being open to being closed or being closed to being open. The next set of commands tries to figure out which of those two cases we have. This creates two more variables, one of them named switch value, which will be based on reading in our switch. If the thing we read in happens to be the value true, that means our gate is currently open. The magnet isn't close to the sensor. Otherwise, it's closed. The next thing we do is we check to see if we're currently connected to the internet and to the particle services. If we are, we're going to identify the fact that we've already posted this update, and we'll actually publish it. If you wondered where the words gate status, open, and closed came from, this is where. At the end, it'll delay for 1,000 milliseconds, so that's 1 second. So most of the time, our photon checks to see if the gate's changed. If it has, it updates the internet, and then it waits a second and checks again to see if it's changed. It does this over and over and over.